Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside Mentors' Minds, where we dive deep into amazing humans to find out what got them to where they are today, their tips, their tricks, and just their understanding of their mindset and things they've had to done to, I'm going to redo that. One little extra than I normally do.
One more breath.
Yeah, one more breath. Morning time for me.
The 3 didn't work.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside Mentors' Minds, where we dive deep into amazing humans' minds to find out what got them to where they are today. And today we have a very special guest, Theresa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So anyone that's coming across Theresa for the first time, for the listeners and the audience, do you just want to introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the owner of the Monarch Effect. I named that company because although the end result of what I do is weight loss, the true root of what I do is transformation. It's really about taking someone from the inside and changing their mindset, changing their ways that they view themselves, changing how they feel about themselves, changing how they speak, and through that, changing how they behave and therefore how they see themselves towards the end of the journey. I've also written a book called Feel Not Food, which is a workbook for emotional eaters, and developed a program called Love Yourself Lean. All of it with the purpose of teaching people self-worth and how to love themselves into not only the body, but the life that they deserve and that they want.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So how did you get into this?
Wow, such a story. So I've been on my own journey with disordered eating. I've been overweight and suffered with self-worth and depression and isolation. And I would suspect anybody that was in my life at that time wouldn't know it. Those of us that struggle, we are great fakers. And so, but we struggle. And so we surround ourselves with people, but generally feel alone. Our mood, we have these really dark places that we go in our mind. And so with that, we tend to use food in every way plus fuel, right? Or a lot of people use it for fuel. Fuel's a byproduct. We really use it for so many other things like distraction, comfort, and punishment. And so I had to go through my own journey of struggling with food and my relationship with food, my relationship with myself. And realize it's a really lonely, ugly place to be, and nobody deserves to feel that way. And most of the professionals in the space handle a lot of the logistics of weight loss, but not necessarily the emotion and the mindset behind it. So a personal trainer will do a great job demonstrating proper form and how to exercise, and a nutritionist or dietitian will focus on the logistics of eating. But most of us that struggle with weight know most of that already. We could probably teach them a thing or two. But what we struggle with is believing we're capable and worthy of achieving the end result. Most people that struggle with disordered eating either have some traumatic past or some root truths that they learned either through observation or were taught that really detract from their belief that they deserve. And so for many of them, you just feel more, right? And you feel too much and can't handle it. So you hide through food, you comfort through food, you distract through food, or you get filled with so much self-disgust and self-hatred, you punish through food. And so I recognized through my own journey, there's a lot of professionals out there to help people lose weight, but what most people they don't struggle losing weight. Almost everybody I know has lost weight, no problem. They don't keep it off. It's this finite journey of I'm going to do something for a certain amount of time, and that's not reality for success.
Wow.
I think we lost our connection.
Yep, we're back.
Still there, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch Wi-Fi here. Give me a second. Hopefully this doesn't. All right, and we're back.
And we're back.
Okay, stronger connection. I should switch the Wi-Fi. So you said disorder eating. So I'm putting the pieces together. I think your disorder was overeating then? Is that what you had?
Yeah, so I struggled from overeating, I also struggled from anorexia. So I did both. And so I use the word disorder eating versus eating disorder. So when I was anorexic, it was a true eating disorder. And the difference to me is one has a lot of professionals behind it. So anorexic is a known disorder, whereas some of the other mindset eating problems aren't necessarily considered a disorder by therapists per se, but it is a disordered way of eating. So when I still struggle with food. It's not something that goes away. You simply win more battles than you lose. And so luckily for the last 25 years, I've been winning more battles than I've lost.
Nice.
And so, but the disordered patterns and the instincts are there. It's just a matter of then using the tools and the techniques to work your way through them. So I've just felt that was important because a lot of people struggle with disordered eating, even if they don't have a qualified or, eating disorder.
It's really interesting. This, as I've been around women more in some of my work as well, it's one that is coming up. So I'm really curious about it. I myself actually experienced it very early on. So yeah, I quickly, I didn't let it take me over too fast for too long. I was in it for about a year, and then I realized like, hey, this is not going to help me. But I
So
know
what
that,
direction did you go in? Were you more the anorexic side or
yeah,
more?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So I was actually overweight and fat, and then I just deprived myself, but I was getting addicted to the results I was getting, that I went too far. And then I was like, never been that skinny before. So it was like my first time in my life I was that skinny. So then I was like, I just want to keep this up. But then I was depriving myself, and it wasn't actually, yeah. Because like in that, when you go from that transition, right, when you start losing weight and you change your body shape, people are complimenting you. So I was like getting validation. But then it turned to like, I was just depriving myself, and it wasn't healthy. So then, yeah, I was able to, I only stayed in it, like I said, for maybe even under a year. But I do know that this is a challenge. Do you find in your work, is it more so with women than it is men?
Yeah, great question. So from a weight loss perspective, it's kind of pretty equal. From an emotional eating perspective, disordered eating perspective, I definitely think women struggle with it more. I think men are less cognizant that they're stuck in a disordered eating pattern, or it's the men that are a lot more in tune with their emotions that recognize they're emotional eaters. And so just percentage wise, women are much more in touch with their emotional side than men typically.
Mm-hmm.
So probably 30% of my business is male and then
Okay.
70% is female.
Okay. And so I always love asking people this, because usually there's a dark moment that catalysted you to making that change. Do you feel like sharing that moment, or what did you go through? When did that shift happen? You said 25 years ago. So usually in those shifts are where the gold is. What
Totally.
talk to me through that?
Right. Totally. So, I'm going to give a little backstory. I'm going to try to cliff note this sucker, even though there's a lot of meat there. So, I mean, the whole story really starts with my mom. And she's this amazing woman, right? And back in the day, she was quite the dynamo. She kind of ran every committee known to man, and she was raising 4 kids practically by herself because my dad was working so much. And she was head of this committee for the church and head of the Girl Scouts and head of the PTA, and afraid of nothing and friends with everyone. And she would give the shirt off of her back, and just had her pulse, her finger on the pulse of everything. And this is when I lived in New Jersey, and I lived there until I was 10. And she was my hero. I mean, this amazing woman that just could handle anything. She's just amazing. Um, the problem was that my mother struggled with obesity her entire life. And so I saw this amazing, dynamic woman. And so did everyone else. She saw a fat woman.
Mm.
And that's all she saw. She was never able to see beyond her weight. And she was never able to forgive herself for what she saw as her lack of control with food. And so, where all of us thought she was amazing, she was filled with so much self hatred. She abused food terribly and herself awfully through her words. And so, as a child, you don't really notice it. You're self absorbed, you're a kid. Um, but once you start going through puberty, you become a lot more cognizant and aware, and the body takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a whole lot of changes going on. You're like, wow, those weren't there yesterday. What's that? Right? And then you're female, you go through it, and all of a sudden you're like, like this is weird and different. And you start paying attention. Well, at 10 years old, we moved to Florida. And when I say we, it was my mom, my dad, and myself. My brothers are significantly older than I am. So in Jersey, truly, it was a village that raised me. Everyone knew us. I was outside from dusk till dawn, or dawn till dusk. And, I always felt safe, and everybody loved me because I was a Paganini, and that was the town family. Like everybody was at our house all the time, and everybody knew us. And so when we moved, my brothers were old enough, they didn't move with us. So I went from being one of four to being an only child. And then where I had grown up in this village, we moved more to a retirement area of Florida where there really weren't any kids. And so, and my parents were exhausted. So they kind of backed out of a lot of their interaction that they had before. So life changed for me dramatically. And then shortly thereafter, puberty started to hit. And so I'm going to school and I'm the new kid. And, where I was like that central family, now there's this other clique, and I'm the girl with the weird, funny accent that nobody knows, right?
Mm.
And so, I started to experience rejection for the first time and really struggled. And I didn't understand what was happening because I'd never really experienced that before. And so, having watched my mom my entire life and started to be much more observant, I thought, well, I'm a really good person. It must be my weight.
Mm.
They don't like me because I'm fat. Now, I was never a skinny kid, but I was never a fat kid. I could probably eat as much as a grown man at like 6 years old, but I was super active. So, you know, a stiff wind wouldn't knock me over, but at the same time, nobody would have said I was a chubby kid, right? I was just, a normal child. So I wasn't really fat, but that's when the anorexia started, right? Like that rejection and trying to figure out like how to fit in, and watching my mom identify only with her weight. Like anything wrong with her was her weight. So I took that on myself. And so like you, I was probably in it for a few years, never enough to be hospitalized or dealt with medically. But then because that's not my natural disorder is to overeat. I started working at fast food as a teenager and then gained 20 pounds in a year and just kept going
Wow.
from there, right? It was
Yeah.
crazy. So then I just continued to gain weight. And then I started really following my mother's footsteps. I really started to battle bouts of depression. That's when I started to isolate a little bit. I stopped doing the really fun, cool things that a young girl in Florida should be doing. I should be at the beaches. I should be partying. I should be dating. And I got invited to do those things. And I was like, no, I am not getting in a bathing suit. I am not going in public. I'm not dating, God forbid, somebody could actually see me. No, that's never going to happen. So I started to really close myself off. And so I started finding, friends I was comfortable with. Most of them were larger and as larger than me or as large as me. They would be drinking, smoking. We'd be at bars most nights. Even though I wasn't even of age, the waitresses knew, bring me my pitcher of water. I hung out with my older friends, but eating the chicken wings, the cheeseburgers, the pizzas, and that kind of thing. And so the weight started to really get out of control. So one day my girlfriend showed me a picture and I was like, nice picture. That's awesome. It was her and somebody else. And I was like, who's the girl? And she looked at me. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, who's the girl in the picture with you? Theresa, that's you.
Whoa.
I was like, no, it's not. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, she was so confused. And I was so confused. And then I noticed the girl in the picture was wearing my shirt and she was holding my keys. And I was like, oh my God, no, that's me. I was like, oh my God, I got that big. And so that was the first shock. And then this other girl had invited me to go on a backpacking trip, and neither one of us had ever backpacked before. And so we did all the prep for it. We go to backpack, her and I. We flew from Florida to the Juan de Fuca Trail in Canada.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
right? Have you done that?
No, but I know of it. It sounds amazing.
It's so pretty. Well, it was supposed to be this 40 or 50 kilometer hike, and we got 9 kilometers in. And the next day we woke up and we were just destroyed. She was so sore. She could barely move. I hurt. Like, we both were like, no, we can't do this. So we hiked back out. Like, we had to cancel the trip. And I was like, God, I can't even do the things I want to do. So I spent the rest of the trip smoking, drinking, being depressed, and beating myself up and eating like a fiend and self-abusing in every way that I could, until I finally had a little breakdown and realized I am in my young 20s. Like, life doesn't get better, and my life only sucks because of my choices. And I could take the best part of my mother, or I could take the worst part of my mother.
Whoa.
Why aren't I taking the best part of my mother? And so that was when I decided things have got to change. And it wasn't food that was the problem, it was me. And that's when I put myself on my own little journey.
And so then that took you to starting to do what? So let's say someone's listening right now, maybe they're experiencing that right now, and they're going, hey, that I totally can relate to what you're talking about, Theresa. What now from that point did you start doing?
So I had been studying nutrition and fitness my whole life in an effort to save my mom. I just wanted her to love her the way I loved her, and she couldn't till she lost weight. So I was always studying, and she would never allow me to help her. So I knew what to do, and I went to college for exercise and sports science with a minor in nutrition. So I had studied all this. I had the knowledge. So I had convinced myself, after seeing that picture, that I had a thyroid problem, right? Rationalization is like your best friend. You want to be in denial.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have a problem. I know I don't eat that badly. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make myself into a science experiment. I am going to eat how I know I should eat, and I'm going to start exercising consistently, and I'm going to keep logs. And in 6 months, when I don't lose anything, I'm going to take it to doctors and they'll give me a diet pill. I'll be able to prove something's wrong with me. So that was my motivation. And so I started exercising 3 times a week. I could only do 30 minutes before like feeling like I was going to die. There was no way I was stepping foot in a gym. People that are overweight who need the gym the most are the most intimidated by the gym. Like, they're not getting in the gym.
Wow,
There's
that's
too
such a
many
good
people.
point.
Yeah, there's too many people to judge them, and there's too many pretty people you just naturally hate. Like, you're like, I hate you.
Yeah.
You're what I want to be, right?
Yeah.
You're living proof of what I have never been able to do.
Wow.
It's so demotivating. The gym is so demotivating.
Wow.
So yeah, so I was like, well, I'm not going to a gym. So I had, this was back when step aerobics was a thing. So I did my step aerobics in my living room in my apartment. And I made it through the warm up and like paused it. It was like, holy hell, that was the warm up. I'm going to die. And then forced myself to keep going until I was like, I can't. So I did, that's how I started. And then I started, I gave up drinking. I gave up smoking.
Whoa.
And I started making all my meals.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a big
Well,
change though, right?
it's a huge change. Now, luckily for me, I was never addicted to cigarettes. So dropping that was super easy. I was a social smoker. I didn't smoke during the day. I smoked when I drank. So when I gave up drinking, giving up smoking was easy.
What about
But
drinking? How was that for you?
it was, it's crazy. And if you ask somebody else who's been through this, they'll talk about kind of like the switch. When you finally make the decision, there's some switch that just makes everything easy at that point. And so for those of you that are listening and are like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, I struggle every single day. It's because you're still in that change curve. You're not yet there where you're like, I am ready, right? And when you're ready, there's this mental switch that just happens. And so at that moment, it wasn't that hard.
When would you say that switch comes in?
It comes in when you've really decided to focus on you versus the weight, right? So the weight is a symptom. Unless you're truly uneducated on how to eat, weight's a symptom. So when you just get lost in the next fad diet, you kind of give it over a little bit and you're like, oh, this is hard. I really want a cheeseburger. And you just give into the cheeseburger. But when you're like, I hate my life, I want a different life, the cheeseburger loses a lot of its allure, right? When I want to be a smaller size, that's kind of powerful, but a different life. I want to fall in love. I want to feel confident in my ability to have a career. I want to have children. I want to be able to get in a hot air balloon. I want to be able to fly on a plane and not have to reserve 2 seats. Like when you think of life at a different size and you finally realize I want that and I believe I deserve that, the switch happens.
So when you made this, when you made this switch, like, is there like a build up to it, to the decision, or does it happen right away?
It doesn't happen. Well, it depends, right? Every journey is different. So for me, like I said, I saw that picture. That was like the first slap in the face.
Okay.
The amount of depression I was experiencing was another clue that things weren't well in my world. Failing at the hike was the next one. And then having 6 days of really nothing to do because I wasn't hiking and all of the self-abuse, right? Like I had to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And when I hit rock bottom, I then had to soul search and be like, what am I doing and why? Like you really have to be willing to dig into the why. And a lot of people that struggle with disordered eating just don't want to. The why hurts. Why is painful, right? Like you have to admit there's a weakness. You have to admit there's a hurt. There's a vulnerability to exploring the why. And so when you're willing to explore that vulnerability and allow it, even to yourself, because those of us that struggle with disordered eating, yeah, we put on a front for everyone else, but we also put on a front for ourselves. Hence why I thought I had a thyroid problem. I knew I didn't have a thyroid problem, but that's how I'm able to stay in denial and not look at the truth. So once I was no longer able to escape the truth and I realized, God, I hate me. I hate my life. And I hate my life because I'm making choices that suck. And I'm to blame, which means I'm also empowered. I'm the one who can change this. And there's no reason at all why I can't do this. And when I came to that conclusion and I was ready to live a completely different life than I was living, the switch happened for me.
Do you remember the
So it
day
was
it
a process.
happened? Like the switch? Do you remember?
I
the exact-
remember the week, like the switch happened while I was on that hiking trip and failed. It was
Okay.
at a hostel on Vashon Island in Washington. It was really towards the end of that trip that I really did. I had some alone time and did some soul searching, and that's when I get back from this trip, life's changing.
Wow.
And it
Wow. And so
did. But here,
we're here today now, and where do you said that you're winning battles, but like, let's say in terms of like smoking and drinking and nutrition, like where are you with all that now?
yeah. So I drink. I went back to drinking, but definitely not the way I did before. Before I was hanging out at bars, probably 5 out of 7 days a week, and I was having probably 4 drinks. It was just that was standard. Right now, drinking is social, or drinking is a glass of wine with dinner. One of the things that's really important with somebody with disordered eating is severe restriction usually leads to binging. It's severe restriction is it's another form of disordered eating, right? Anorexia is severe restriction just to the 10th level, right? So these fad diets that, right, whether it's keto, you're taking out all carbohydrates, or it's let's say plant-based for losing weight reasons, not for health reasons, right? Where you're taking out all animal product. Anything where you're taking something completely out for the purpose of weight loss, you're automatically going to crave it. If I tell you don't think about the pink elephant, what are you going to think about?
Yeah.
Right? So if I say you can't have a brownie, now all you want is a brownie.
Sure, sure.
But if I tell you, you can absolutely have a brownie, you can't have the platter. Right?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn, right? And I could count on one hand with fingers left over of the amount of times I've been like inebriated, because that's just not fun for me. So like going overboard doesn't work, but enjoying a beverage and not feeling guilty about it is huge. Enjoying a snack and not feeling guilty about it is huge. I can say that 20, 25 years into my journey.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit more restrictive in the
Sure.
beginning. But you have to figure out, and this is what my programs do, you have to figure out what's a trigger for you, right? Not everything's a trigger. My mother, if she's going to eat pasta, she's going to eat an entire box of pasta.
Mm.
Me, I can have a serving of pasta and be fine. Give me some rice. Woo, doggy. That's going to set me off, right? And why, I can't tell you. You know, people will blame it. It's a carb. Well, I can eat other carbs just fine. I don't think carbs are evil. But everybody's got to become more in tune with themselves. And that's what I learned to do throughout the journey. And that's where the battles come in, right? Like I was just away for July 4th. We were at a family reunion and, you know, there's cake and there's as much alcohol as you could possibly consume. And there's all kinds of stuff. And, you know, what's worth it? What's
Mm-hmm.
not worth it? And really deciding, right? Like if I want to taste cake, if I want a piece of cake, what am I not going to have? Right? Because I can't have everything I want and maintain my weight.
Mm.
And that's important to me. So it's really what's worth it. If I really want to drink tonight, I'm not going to have dessert.
Mm.
Right? If I really want dessert, I'm not going to have that biscuit with dinner. Right? It's what's worth it and allowing myself to have the freedom to choose that and feel good about it. And then what I do choose to eat it without guilt, because that's huge. Guilt's a big contributor to the problem.
Wow, there's so many areas I want to unpack here.
Right? There's so much.
Yeah, I'm so curious into this. It almost sounds like you play like nutritional Tetris, right? Like I put one here, but then I have to not put another here so that I can maintain where I'm at. So talk to
Yes.
me about this. There's two areas I would love you to go into. The first area is like when you talk about the guilt area, and then how do you navigate that through your client's journey? Like what are the stages of that?
Yeah, that this is the root of everything that I do, because guilt is the number one contributor to binging. It is the number one contributor to self-hatred. There's nothing good that comes from guilt when it's associated with food. And so now I'm like you, I have so much in my brain. I'm like, where do I want to start? So one of the first things I have to really talk to my clients about is the fact that guilt has its place. If you hurt someone, it's appropriate to feel guilty. But then the appropriate response to that is an apology. Man up, as they say, and say, I'm sorry. And for somebody that's high and high into control and perfectionism, which most people with disordered eating struggle with, saying the words I'm sorry is very difficult. And so teaching guilt has its place, but has nothing to do with food. You should feel badly about eating when you abuse yourself with food because you didn't treat yourself well. You mistreated yourself, right? So teaching clients that they're worthy of love and respect first from themselves. And so when they abuse food, they're abusing themselves, and that's inappropriate, right? And so changing how they view that, right? Making them understand that they don't deserve that no matter what, and that there's another way. If they're feeling guilty over something else in life, there's a better response to that than eating. And so do that instead. For example, the apology, right? That is difficult. It can feel like punishment, but it is the appropriate response from, hurting someone. Eating a brownie is not hurting yourself. It is not hurting other people. There's no reason to feel guilt. Even if you didn't do nutritional Tetris and it wasn't in your plan to eat that brownie, guilt is misplaced. It's a brownie, right? So I have to teach a lot perspective. When food has a title on it, such as good and bad, broccoli, good, which means when I eat broccoli, I feel lean and thin, I feel in control, I feel worthy of feeling good about myself. Brownie, bad. Well, that inherently means when I eat a brownie, I'm going to feel bloated, I'm going to feel fat, I don't deserve to feel good in my clothing, I'm going to shrink inside myself, I'm going to self-hate, and I'm going to punish. All because I gave these foods these titles. By doing that, I gave them power. And so I really help work with clients to take away labels. Good and bad, right and wrong don't exist. Food is food. Food is just food.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you eat it, there needs to be a mindfulness to it, right? Because if you you're in this habit now of thinking this brownie is bad. Okay, so that means we need to create a new habit. But the first thing we need to do is see that brownie and think, I really want it. Okay, time to go into mindfulness, right? Am I going to feel good about eating this brownie 2 minutes after I'm done eating it? Of course, I'm going to enjoy it at the time I'm eating it. That's not my problem. My problem's after. Can I eat this without guilt? Right? And if they can answer, yes, I can. For whatever reason, I exercised earlier today, right? I've had a light day calorie wise. This is going to do nothing to me. You know what? I still haven't had dinner and I'll make myself a lighter dinner, right? And they can start doing nutritional Tetris in their mind and planning it out, or understanding from a caloric need perspective, it's just a brownie. Maybe I'll eat the brownie instead of the pasta dinner, and instead I'll have a piece of chicken, right? Like understanding the worth. But so many people don't go through that thought process first. And so the whole purpose of the thought process is to be able to eat the brownie without guilt. Or if guilt is going to be the predominant emotion, choose not to eat it today. Just today. And I think that's a huge problem with people with disordered eating. They think I'll never be able to eat that brownie. So not only am I going to eat the brownie, I'm going to eat all the brownies, because once I get over this, I'll never let myself eat a brownie again.
Wow.
And so you've got to take that away to say the decision you make right now is for right now. Right? So let's say you choose not to eat the brownie right now and it's 3 p.m. Well, you go home and you have a light dinner and the family goes out and wants to get some frozen yogurt, and you think, you know what? No, I'll feel good about that. I could totally enjoy that and have a few toppings on it and I'll feel good about that. Okay, that's a whole other decision, right? It wasn't no to desserts for the entire day or for your year, your life. It was just that moment. You can make a different decision later. So that's really where a lot of my work comes in, is just being a lot more cognizant of how you view food and then how you eat food and how you look at it when you're making the decision to eat.
This is so powerful. This is such powerful work. It must be so rewarding to facilitate this for people.
It's huge because people that struggle with this disorder don't enjoy food. They either have to eat like a rabbit to feel good about themselves and not enjoy a bite of it, or they feel guilt every time something delicious enters their mouth. So it's just a really horrible way of living. And so, yeah, when people actually my clients will come and be like, I had dessert and I didn't feel guilty. Like that's a proud moment. And then we talk about their wins and what their successes are, and their successes are eating dessert. And most people are like, wait, you're a weight loss coach. I'm like, well, I'm beyond that. Weight loss is the end result, but they can lose weight eating dessert. Because if they can have a normal sized piece of dessert when they feel good about it, we're not going to binge. And it's the binging that causes such significant weight gain.
Wow. So I remember, I don't know when I learned this, but I really want to be in what I'm in. And I find that, like, let's say like someone's eating a bag of potato chips, right? They'll be like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. So they're not, it's like the ultimate worst place, because you're eating the bag of potato chips. You're eating it anyways, but then
Right.
you're not enjoying it. When
Right.
the reason you're eating it is to enjoy it. So you're in
Right.
two places at once. Be one or the other. Like, don't eat it and be in that space, or eat it and be like, I'm doing this and I'm so aware of my action. And that's what I do sometimes with my nutrition as well. It's like, I'm just so aware of this action, but I don't like, I'm enjoying it because it was a choice. It wasn't through unconsciousness or anything. Like, it was a pure choice that I'm so happy and grateful that I'm eating this thing right now. And I remember learning this a little while back, and I was like, it's such a change. But for your clients and people out there that are experiencing this, like, think about this. Like, we eat 3 times a day. So mad, or some people like myself, like I intermittent fast, or some people more. But like, that's a challenge. Like, imagine coming to this 3 times a day and you're constantly having that. So that's a massive block that you unlock for people. What would you say is like kind of the biggest change that happens afterwards, now
Oh,
that they're through this guilt?
well, they honestly, they view themselves and food differently, where food is usually their first waking thought. And then their day revolves around it, right? Like, if, let's say you're at work, when I used to be in the corporate world, vendors would bring food in all the time. Well, and then people would perk up and be like, what did the vendor bring today? And let me be the first at it because I may not get my share. And
Oh,
all of a
wow.
sudden, right? Like, it's all encompassing. And
Wow.
then, there's snacks in the break room, or somebody's got snacks on their desk, and the world revolves around food. It's everywhere. And when somebody struggles with disordered eating, it takes over their every thought. And so one of the greatest senses of freedom that my clients get is that it's no longer the centralized role of their life, right? Like, they're living, they're out doing, they're out experiencing, and they feel good in their bodies. So a lot of people, like, their posture is like this because they just don't want to be seen. And then all of a sudden they're like this because
Mm.
they're afraid, and they're comfortable in their skin. And a big tenet of the program is that don't wait until you're at your ideal size to love who you are. Because,
Oh, that's so good.
well, because you are you.
Hmm.
It's just fat cells. Why do they have the right to take over your worth? That's all it is fat cells.
Yeah,
Now,
it's true.
in their defense, society treats heavy people extremely differently. There's a huge bias against fat. Fat people are considered less intelligent, sloppy, less
Huh.
clean, less motivated. I mean, if you look at the work environment, they're treated differently. If you look at a social environment, they're treated differently. There's a huge stigma against people that are overweight, and it sucks because it just validates their own feelings.
Oh, wow. I didn't
It's
even think
awful.
about that.
It's awful. I mean, I'll never forget, I was talking to a coworker who had lost a ton of weight. And what did he say? He said something like, I can't imagine somebody letting themselves get that fat. Like, that's just disgusting. And he was just going off. And I'm like, that was you not that long ago. How could you be so insensitive?
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, you're not a better person because you're smaller. You know what you are? Smaller. That's it. Like, that's
Mm.
it. And so teaching people their worth at every size while they aim to get smaller is
Hmm.
really important, because one of the greatest problems with losing weight, which is something you experienced, when you're heavy, right? Everything's fat. So you're just kind of like, I hate it all. Once you start losing weight, there's that problem spot that gets all of your attention, right? On men, it's the belly, right? Or it's the chin, right? Like, they're hyper focused on that one thing because now they see it. They've lost weight. And now all of a sudden it's this goal of, oh, well, now I need to get rid of that. And we start to stay focused on the physical versus the human. And
Mm.
women are the worst, right? The
Mm.
thighs, the pooch, the butt, whatever, the wings. Like, women love to hate on themselves and their body, and it gets worse the thinner they get. The most
Huh.
self-conscious women on earth are the thinnest, best looking women. they're so hyper focused on the physical, they can't love who they are. And so as heavy people start to slim down, the disorder morphs.
Wow, it changes.
It changes. And so the root, you've got to love you.
Mm.
Because if you can love you, you can love the body. Right? And so what they walk away with is being able, one of my clients, she lost over 100 pounds. Some of that was with me, a lot of it was without me, but she could not come to terms with her body. She got to a certain point. She actually lost 100 pounds and got to this point where she was like not satisfied and she was unhappy and she was so hyper focused and like regimented,
Mm-hmm.
and it took over
Mm-hmm.
her life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we worked together, my role wasn't as much to help her lose any more weight, although that was her goal. My goal was for her to recognize what she'd accomplished in the body that she now had and to live life in that body. And so she won President's Club at her company, and she went to Turks and Caicos and wore a bikini and felt awesome in it and took pictures in her bikini and posted them on social media and felt great. And her body, she really hadn't lost any more weight with me than before we started. She saw herself differently. She realized, damn, look what I did. Look who I am. I feel amazing. Why am I hiding? And she stopped hiding. And she exercised every day she was on vacation because it made her feel good. And she ate dessert every day on vacation because she enjoyed it. And every picture, she's laughing and she's connecting and she's experiencing, and she's not focused on food and she's not focused on self consciousness um, of her body. And that's the walk away.
Wow. So congratulations, by the way, for helping her get over that bridge. That's so amazing.
It was
Um,
great. Her smiling.
yeah, I mean, for sure. So you said something that really stuck out to me, and like accepting you beyond, like, so like I know when you did this, it's like I know that human so well, even that's me at times. Sometimes that's necessary to achieve a goal in some capacity, but can you do it in kindness, in love and acceptance, you know? But a lot of times that happens and it's just none of that. It's just tunnel vision. And again,
Yep.
depending on humans' severity of what they're in, sometimes that can at least catalyst them to get out of what they're in. But you said something, accepting you. I think this is so powerful. So what can I do? Let's say I'm not accepting me right now. What can I do to start accepting me?
Well, there's a few things. I think one of the greatest challenges in the world today is we do not focus on our mental and emotional health. We put ourselves in a constant state of doing. We are so busy all the time, and then we take on even more. So there's very little time to focus inward. There's very little time to even self reflect on, where am I at? How out of sorts am I? We spend most of our time exhausted. And it's not just Americans, it's people all over the world that are just working themselves to the bone, whether it's in a career and or as a parent and or in a relationship and or on some committee and or this or that or the other. We're so afraid to be with our thoughts. And if we have a moment, we're on our phones and we're on social media, or we're, looking at videos or playing video games, or we're checking out Pinterest. We don't sit with ourselves. We're terrified of what we'll see. And that's where so much of this stems from. And so the biggest thing that I urge my clients and anyone to do is create 10, 15 minutes a day. That is it. To sit in silence with yourself and take stock. Like, how am I today? Where am I? Why? Am I in a good headspace? Why not? What's great about my life? And then start turning towards gratitude. If we're finding we're in a bitch fest in our head,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've got to flip that, because that's a choice. I could talk about everything wrong in my world, but I can also talk about everything right in my world. I get to choose what I talk about. And so talking about that freedom of choice and what words we say dictate our thoughts. Our thoughts dictate our actions. And so we've got to make sure the words that we're saying match the life we want to have, match the body we want to have, match the feelings we want to have. And so I'll do an activity with my clients where, well, here, let's do the activity, Matthew.
Okay, I'd love to. Test me. I'll be your test subject.
Let's do it. Okay, so if there were 3 adjectives and only 3 that you wish people would use to describe you, what do you wish they would say about you?
And can you give me an example?
Sure. So I would love people to describe me as confident, compassionate, and intuitive.
Ooh, I
Right?
like that.
Like, those are the 3 I wish people would say about me. Whether they'd say that or not, I don't know, but that's what I would want them to say.
Okay.
Right? So what 3 would you want people to say?
I'm an accepting human. Um, I am peaceful, and I am compassionate.
Okay, so accepting, peaceful, and compassionate. So what I'll have my clients do is, as you make decisions throughout the day, right? Even when you first wake up, look in that mirror and say, what would an accepting, compassionate, what was your third one?
Peaceful.
Peaceful person do with their day, right? And then when somebody approaches you and you can feel your angst rising in your head, what would an accepting, peaceful, compassionate person do in this situation? What would they say, right? And then when you do that, it gives you a very clear answer of how you should act in a way you want to be.
Wow.
And so you have reasons to feel pride in yourself. You have reasons to feel good about who you are because you're acting the way you want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when people struggle with the activity, I'll then ask, okay, so who do you admire and why? Right. And then, okay, I take those words and I say, okay, so you admire them because they're resilient, they're adaptable, they're strong, they're focused, they're intelligent, whatever their words are. And I say, okay, so from that, pick your 3. And now make decisions based on that, even when it comes to food. You just ate a brownie. It's outside of your plan. Well, what would an accepting, peaceful, compassionate person say to you right now? They wouldn't say, hey, fatso, now you deserve to be fat because you ate a brownie. They wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
What would they say? Say that to yourself. And so teaching them to practice being the person they want to be creates a level of self-acceptance because they become aware, much more aware of their words, their actions, their behaviors, their thoughts. And it gets to become much more in alignment, most likely with the person they already are. But then if it's not who they are, it's who they get to become, right? And then really focusing on gratitude at the end of the day, and not some gimmicky gratitude stuff like, I'm really glad I had clothes on my back today. Okay, that's great. But really, what are you grateful for? Give me something real, right? Like, yes, you're American, you're super lucky, you're blessed, you're going to have clothes on your back. So let's talk about something with a little bit more depth. Let's not just, Theresa said, Chuck, right? Like,
Yeah.
So, we talk about gratitude. You can do it in a journal or not. I don't care. Do it your way, but be grateful. A life of gratitude fills a heart with joy. And it allows you to see things you wouldn't normally see when you're mired in depression and isolation. So those are the 2 main things that I use to help my clients work their way towards better self-acceptance.
It's so good. I'm not joking. I'm literally looking at my whiteboard right now and my partner and I, we went over this 2 nights ago of all the traits of the new version of myself that I'm in the process of becoming, and
See?
checking myself before I go on social media and asking myself, am I these traits before I go on social media? And I love this. I actually would do this, and it's actually something I do with my clients as well. I don't do it in the adjective world, but I do it in terms of future self. So like, I make decisions based off my future self. So I've carved out where I'm heading and my destination point. And rather than waiting to be that person to make those decisions, I've already carved out that archetype now let me act. Does that person make these decisions? How would that person respond? And it's really helped me, because a lot of times what I found is that I'll be, let's say, reactive,
Mhm.
and my old self, let's say, and not that that's anything wrong with that. It's just I'm working towards this person. So if I'm working towards that, why wait to adopt those traits? And that's what allows me to ground into this new identity. It's like I would normally do this, but because I'm heading towards that, I'm actually going to do this now.
Yeah, because you can't just all of a sudden one day be that person. You have to
Yeah.
become that person.
Yes.
To become that person, you have to start acting like them right now because, like you said, you've got so many years of habits that need to be transformed into new habits, and all that means is practice.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference between the old you and the new you is practice,
Mm.
right? And so that's what you're doing. You're practicing being the new you
Mm-hmm.
until it's natural.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And in that practice, it takes conscious effort at the beginning, especially.
100%. As with anything,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Think of it
Yeah.
as a hobby. You don't just start water skiing beautifully the very first time and doing flips, right? You have to practice and pay attention and keep your arms locked and your weight distributed, right? Like you have to think these things through. It's the same with practicing to be a new version of you.
So we're coming towards the end of the podcast, and um, yeah, I'm so curious about your book. Like, what was that process like? I don't want to project, but is it your first book?
It is my first book.
So I'm sure you went through, like, I should write a book. And then it did that period. Talk to me about that process of you writing a book and then getting it published and all that. I'd be so curious to know. What was that
Yeah.
like for you?
So somebody, so people tell me all the time I should write a book. They never thought it was going to be about emotional eating. They thought it was going to be about my life. But when I moved into this space, somebody was telling me, wow, right? Like you're just a natural born speaker. You need to be doing speaking engagements and a book, just would really help. And so I was like, an author? Like self-limiting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beliefs. I'm like, I'm not an author. But in my old life, in my corporate world life, I was an instructional designer. So I was a writer. It's what I did. So I was like, okay, my job was to develop instruction, and I don't want to write a book. I want to create a workbook where somebody can buy this book. And if they truly work the book, they don't just read the book and try to get through it, but if they work the book, they can overcome emotional eating. Like it will be like working one-on-one with me alone for a lot less money, and I can reach a lot more people. So understanding that was my drive, that I wanted something absolutely affordable that people could pick up. And if they really dove deep, they could change their life with the book. Um, I went to town, and honestly, the easiest part was writing the book.
Mm.
That flowed. That was really easy. Um, the hardest part was figuring out what to do with the damn thing. Like I'm somebody who is not very social media savvy, and I don't really own a TV. I don't hang out on the internet. I don't really. I don't. I mean, the last time I was like Barnes and Noble, or Borders. Like people were like those stores have closed. I'm like, really? They don't even exist. Where do people get books, right? So,
Yeah.
and then do you my neighbor coincidentally is an author, and so I talked to her a little bit about like, well, what do I do? And she's like, well, you can self-publish or you can go through a publishing company. And I was like, well, publishing company sounds scary. I'm just going to do it through Amazon because I don't plan on doing book tours it's
Mm-hmm.
really a tool for people. So I went through that process. I had to hire somebody to make a cover. And I'm like, I don't know what goes on a cover, right? And then I had to come up with a title. And I'm like, I don't know. So the hardest part, honestly, was the logistics of the book, not the content, but the book, and then putting it on Amazon and coming up with like the back cover description and all that kind of stuff. And it was super, super stressful Like that part of it was super stressful. It actually caused quite the delay because it scared me enough that I just went into hiding mode and just kind of avoided it for a while. And then I finally bit the bullet and I published it and I was like, whoo, done.
And so let's say for like, did you, is it in ebook form or is it also paperback?
It's not in ebook form. And the reason why I didn't put it in ebook form is because it's a workbook. And so I didn't want people to be kind of just reading it and not doing the work, because any any good coach will tell you I'm not the solution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the tour guide,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's all I am. I'm the guide. And so you've got to do the work. I'm just going to
Sure.
help you understand what the work is. And so if it's in an ebook form, it would be really easy to be like, oh, I don't have a notebook right now. I'm in my car, I'm on a plane, I'm wherever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this is the book that didn't do anything for them. And I thought, no, I'm not giving people that excuse. So it truly is just in physical form. I have it right here.
Oh, awesome. Oh, I love the color.
Thanks. I really wanted to depict people comfortable in their bodies connecting, and food's there, but you can tell it's not the centralized purpose.
Yep.
It's the camaraderie, it's the connection. And these aren't thin women, and you can tell they're happy.
Yeah.
They're good with who they are, and they're enjoying each other. And that's what I really wanted to depict with my book. So I liked the graphic.
That's so awesome. And so, um, this is like a personal question now for me. Um, when someone orders your book on Amazon, do they go out and print it, or did you have to invest in like a certain amount of units?
Great question. So no, so I can buy the books at a serious discount and sell them myself, or it's print on demand, and Amazon handles all of it.
Print on demand. That is nice.
Right? So when somebody orders the book, Amazon will print it and ship it.
Wow.
It's very, very easy.
Huh.
Very easy.
But you said that it was challenging also to get to that easy place.
Well, yeah,
Really?
because technologically it requires, so in order to publish on Amazon, you have to have certain, your book cover's got to fit certain specs, right? And then your book has to be created in a certain format, and it needs to have, you have to have the title page, and you've got to have certain
I
numbers,
see. I
like
see.
all this stuff. And I was like, so I had to go on one of those, hire me, like a freelancer or whatever those ones are. I can't even remember who I used, but I went on one of those, and Fiverr, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they created the book cover. They put the book in the right format. They even made the ebook. And then I can't remember, I couldn't open it. I didn't have the right program to open the ebook, which is why I didn't publish it. Cause I'm like, well, if I can't see it, I don't know what product I'm putting out there. That was the other reason I didn't do it. Cause I was like, I don't even have this song. Like, she made it in a way I can't even see.
It reminds me of, do you know the movie Zoolander?
Yes.
It's like they're in the computer. How do we get into this computer?
That's me. That's me. So yeah, so the struggle was real when it came to the technology. The writing of the book was easy. Most people are like, oh my God, writing a book's so hard. And I'm like, well, thank God that was really easy for me. But the technological side of it scared the patootie out of me.
So talk to me about your relationship, you said, with social media, because usually, I mean, myself included, you're witnessing me almost just a year in social media. Thank you. Um, and you come off as a very social human. And I feel like I also am getting to read, like you're a very savvy human, like you're really good at what you do. So I'm so curious. I feel like someone like you, if we were talking and through my guests, if you told me you weren't into social media, I would not think
Believe me.
that.
So I love people, but I am super sensitive, and maybe because of what I do, about other people's business. And I just don't believe your business is mine.
Mm.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
so like my closest friends know my life.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have almost 900 followers on Facebook, which is nothing in the Facebook world, but I probably don't know 750 of them, right? Like, so there's just a discomfort for me in that level of sharing. Now, I can share about my business. I have way more followers on my business page than I do my personal page. I rarely ever post at all on my personal page. I feel like those that need to know. I don't have to. I don't. It's a level of validation to me, um, that I don't feel like I need from people I don't know or I'm
Mm.
not close enough to. Like friends that I had in kindergarten, great to reconnect and see how they're doing, but we're not friends. Like,
No.
so that's a hardship for me. Um, I'm somebody like you where when I work with my clients, they lead the conversation, and where the conversation goes is where we handle it. So to come up with just a topic off the cuff to video or post about is so difficult for me because my inspiration is the client.
Mm.
And so I struggle to not feel repetitive, or I struggle to not say the obvious, or I struggle to say something inspirational without context. And so there's a stress for me over that because I enjoy talking to people one on one. I enjoy getting to know what they're willing to share. Um, I love meaningful conversation and I love that. And I don't see a lot of that on social media. And so it's a little bit of a turnoff for me where I want to connect. I don't want to be mercenary about it. I don't want to just build a business. I don't want to sell things. I want to connect. And I just struggle to feel that connection on that space, which is a huge hindrance for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And for myself included, just to touch up on that, like, you know what I had to get through is like, I don't like when I first came on, like it's really interesting being this aware while going on to social media because I can really tune into how I feel and what I'm experiencing. And one of them was like, man, I don't know you. Like how are you following me now? How are we we're so I would call it like internet friends. Like I have these internet friends that I just, where are you in the world? Who are you? What are you doing? This is what you do? Like just, I have no idea who you are. And like, would we in other words ever interact with each other? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. So it's, for me, it was like really strange because I'm such an in-person human person. And
Yeah.
I actually went to Vegas to study the psychology of human interaction and human behavior.
That's cool.
So for me, it was a really strange transition. And so with me being, having a deep interest into people and into psychology, the digital space is like a whole new animal that I am just realizing if I'm looking to my future or the future of our planet, I'm not being adaptable for myself personally, because if the way we're evolving, it is digitally. Media is now in our hand. It's not on the TV as much anymore. It's at our fingertips. And so to at least not understand it, was my standpoint before, and what crossed me over the bridge was like, we no longer share a business card anymore as much. It's, we share our social media, our personal brand. And so thankfully, I've been so blessed to have a genuine human guide me in the digital space, because I call him my digital guardian angel, because there's just so many people out there that it's like, is this what you do? Is this what you do? Is that how you do it? Like, but like, where's the genuinity in it? Where does it come from inside themselves? And so for me, it's a big part of my mission is to be really close to that part of myself, and make it as close as I can to what you and I are experiencing in this moment. That's my goal. But in order to get there, like, it's taken a lot of work, like a lot of work.
And that's, I think, where I struggle is there's so much work I want to do with the clients But I have to understand the clients. I work with people nationally because it's a virtual business. It's a local business, but it's a virtual business as well. And so in order for people to get to know me virtually outside of referral, direct referral is social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I do need to get out of the headspace I'm in 100% in agreement. And I'm trying. I am trying. And trying is a failure word. So recently I've been doing.
Hey, this is part of it, what you're doing today.
Yes. And I am so appreciative of it as well, because I need inspiration on how to put myself out there in a way, because like the intention was authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my claims to fame is my authenticity, is I'm very real. I'm very down to earth. I'm not going to mince words. I'm going to be completely non-judgmental, but I'm also going to be very honest. And so I want to be able to put that out there. And I struggle to understand how to do that, right? How do I maintain authenticity to the masses when I work with the few, right? So I'm still trying to figure that out and find my way.
Wow. So I have some deep, I call it remote empathy for you, which is empathy from afar.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I could not empathize with you like so deeply, and I feel so blessed. So I have to tell you a story. Last or maybe 2 weeks ago, my friend was in a similar position. Same sort of thing. Him and I were connected. He's actually we did a project together. We did some business together. And I was telling him, he's been watching me because when we first met, I didn't even have any social media. I didn't have nothing. So he's been watching my evolution. And there's a lot of fear to get over. I had to get over a lot of fear. I had to get over a lot of like, kind of, I would call it like stale thinking, like
Yeah.
the way I was viewing it. But the way I was viewing it was because of the way it was making me feel. That was ultimately why I was viewing it that way. But in actuality, it was, if we change the way we look at things, the things that we look at change. And so by having a proper foundation and guidance, I realized I'm completely limiting my impact. Like
Yeah.
there are so many people I could help, and just especially you know what's so funny, Theresa? The world needs more of you out there. That's the challenge. They need
I
more
gotta get
of
up
this. They need more of this authenticity, this realness out on the internet. But the challenge is people like you and I don't want to go on because it's A, intimidating, B, overwhelming. And where do you start? And how do I transmute what's inside of me on the internet? And then when I go to begin to do it, it's nothing to how I'm actually feeling, and it doesn't look anything. And I'm like, so defeated.
I get it, 100%.
So I helped him. I helped him cross that bridge, and he just messaged me yesterday, being like, "Man, you really saved me like maybe 6 to 8 months of work. I'm feeling so much better." He's only done 3 posts, but it's just a start, you know. But we kind of went like this, gave him some oxygen to what he was doing. And he came over here, we designed everything, branded him and all this stuff. And I just feel so empathetic towards people like you because, man, I was there. I was like, and it was not that long ago. And I know, like, I've been, I kid you not, Theresa, like, honestly, 6 days a week, day in, day out on this stuff, trying to learn. And it is a digital mountain. I completely agree. But then I focused on the impact. The people that are home alone on the phone scrolling and getting all this information that I'm not going to judge nor good nor bad, but I have an opportunity to share my message being like, you're worth it. You're amazing. You can do what you want to do. You can live your ultimate life. You can feel good. Hey, this is what worked for me. And I'm seeing the ripple effect of what it's having now on just a small scale at this moment. But I realized that like I'm completely limiting myself because there's this massive microphone. If I understand this at a deeper level, the impact that I can make in the human's life I can touch is going far beyond what I could do in person.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I could do a lot more by just doing what you and I are doing here. And then I actually don't need to go out into the world as much because I'm just doing it here. And then I have more time actually in my personal life is what
Which
I've
is
been
so huge and
experiencing.
so important.
Yeah, exactly. It's the nutrients to our garden, really, right? It's what allows me to keep doing the work is the stuff I'm doing on my own time.
Yeah, for sure. That's where your soul gets fed. Besides this,
Yes.
this is soul inspiring as well.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I'd be curious, yeah, to dive a little deeper into this at another point. But I appreciate you sharing, and I hopefully did a touch of inspiration because I was there and I know what you're feeling.
It's a lot of inspiration. I need to know that it's possible because I swear it's funny. I can't seem to grow my social media base at all. And I'm like, wow, I stink. And so, right, I'm like, okay, nope,
Yep.
change the mindset,
Yep.
and just be adaptive and resilient, right? Like those are the
Hmm.
new words that I really try to
I
focus on.
love it.
Adaptive and resilient.
And you know what? It's incredible, Theresa. I am connected to some incredible human beings that are facilitating an amazing experience online. And I'll tell you what, they are getting completely compensated very, very well for the
Mm,
work that they're doing. And it's so incredible. They've completely digitized themselves. They're no longer, they're corporate humans that made that transition like yourself. And I've been watching it. My mentor interviews them and talks to them. I'm in the community with it. My mind has been like, what? This is
mm,
possible. This is
right?
incredible. And the lives that they're touching on top of the compensation that they're getting for the lives that they're touching. So it's just, it is a landscape that is there, and the challenge is finding the right humans. That's what it comes down to. That is the work. It's just finding the right people that you can trust to be guided from, and that
Yeah,
takes
you
that
know what?
takes some
That,
sifting.
that's been a big struggle, right? Like it's
Yeah.
been a big struggle finding those humans, right? Because there's a lot of people, there's so many people out there that have a specialty, and yet not all of them produce the results.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so far, I have not made the best decisions in the humans that I've used to get myself the results.
Sure.
So I just have to keep trying and figure out who that human would be.
Yeah, and the challenge with humans like you and I is we're A, so accepting, B, willing to listen, and we're like, okay, what do we do? So then really in a place to be able to take advantage of in a way that too, because we don't have the understanding. How does this tool work? How does that work? Is that what you do? Okay, I'll try it. And so the challenge, what I'm finding on the internet is that all our morals and ethics are in different places. So what one person may say that's morally ethical, the other person be like, dude, that is not morally ethical, but there's no like center governing rules on the internet really, right? So it's kind of the Wild West. So when you have people like you and I that are like genuine and gentle and want to put out a message and kind and all this stuff, it's like, how do we know? And Theresa, I'll be completely frank. I'm in an area where there's a lot of digital humans, a lot of digital people. Some are absolutely amazing and they are incredible. And some I've been like, how are you doing that? How do you feel okay doing that? I don't
Right.
I don't mention it. I just observe it and I go, wow. But I think about and I look at what they're doing and I think, look at all the people they're showing this to and all what they're doing. And I'm like, oh my God. But what inspires me now is be like, all right, I got to do it for us. Like I got to do it for the ones that don't have that I can be like, you know what, I know what you're going through. I've went through this. This is what it looked like for me. It probably feels similar. This is what I did to get through it. And that's what I said. I did it for my friend and my business partner being like, dude, I can't wait to give you what I understand because it's just like, I know what it was like to get through all this, and it's tough. There's a lot to understand, and how do you do, because you haven't built the lens of discernment, and unfortunately, sometimes building that discernment means getting burnt.
Yeah. And
That's
understanding, right, like just what questions to ask, what to look for, and one of the things I'm finding, right, because I have somebody working on my social media for me, but then it's just so generic and
mm,
it's so uninspiring.
mm-hmm,
It has to be me,
mm-hmm,
right? And so I'm like, I need to be the doing it.
You need to be the heartbeat of your message. Really, this is what it comes down to too, and why I learned the tools is because I'm like, no one's gonna communicate my message better than me, really.
And that's what I'm finding.
Mm-hmm.
And people, because I'm about connecting, I've found they want to see me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, right, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm the face. I'm the face they talk to. I'm the face they
Yep.
see in the program. I'm the
Yep.
face they see on the book. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to stop cheating and using somebody else to just post stuff because I feel obligated to post something and actually get
Oh yeah.
there and be seen. Yeah. So I am definitely open to any advice, suggestions, training, coaching, mentorship, anything that you can offer, just because, yeah, this is a huge, probably my biggest weakness in my
Mm-hmm.
business. It is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest weakness that I've got.
And okay, so think of it in this terms. Like, think how when I asked you, like, talk to me about guilt, you just like lit up. You're like, oh my God, I know this. I know this. When my clients go through this, this. You're sharing. You're sharing with me. Well, what you just said can be put and packaged into a piece of content. And then that same share, where you just share with you and I, but on this podcast now has gone and reached who knows. And at the end of this podcast, when it gets produced, maybe it will go out and it touched someone. I'm already thinking, because you shared your story, I'm already working with someone that I already anticipate. I'm like, I'm not the person you need to be working with. You need to be working with someone like Theresa. I didn't know that it was you, but now that I think about it, I want to send her towards you because or your book, because that's incredible. Like it's niche to what she's looking for. And so, but then this is what a post can do. This is the power of a post, right? And so you're consistently sharing your message. It's a share. It's a share. It's not this. The challenge is because there's like this block that is right now. It feels like an obligation. Oh, I got to post. I should be doing this. I should. Just like the brownie. You're not enjoying the brownie.
I'm not. I'm not. You're absolutely right too, because it is. It's that check mark.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm excited to share.
No.
It's should I have to share today?
Yeah. And the thing is when we understand the why behind why here we share, it becomes a different animal. The whole thing went from this to this for me when I started understanding this. The whole thing flipped for me. And it was in here realizing, wow, okay, it's just the way I've been seeing it. But because the reason I built this reference point is because I've been looking out at all the wrong people and thinking, oh, that's what they do, so I should do that too. It's like, no. There's methods behind it. If you get the right understanding, the right framework, the road to walk down, now the whole thing changes and you're going, wow, okay, so guilt came up for me today. Oh my God, I really want to share this. And it's natural within you and it's a natural expression. It's not this obligation, I should feed this to them or this. If it doesn't come, then you don't share it. It's not like you have to, you just check in, but it's through what's coming up. I just had this amazing coaching session with, let's say, Sarah, and she overcame this thing and it was guilt and you just you share it. It's like you would to share it with your friends at coffee. It's about making that from what's in your heart to putting it online. But then the crazy part is the lives that you can touch online. And your reach is just 10x, 20x, 100. I mean, there's no real ceiling.
Yeah.
There's no real ceiling to your ability to touch people's hearts. And so the challenge is just getting everything set up, right? Getting the operation set up. That's kind of the thing. So I would love to open that up with you and see, we get a better idea where you're at, and then go from there, see how I can add value to you and help you in this space. I'd absolutely love to connect you or guide you in the right direction.
I'd be so grateful. I'd be so grateful.
And for the listeners too, if you're at this part of the podcast and you feel that you're in that space too, feel free to reach out to me. I have complete remote empathy for anyone that is struggling in this space, because I feel like I have to, and I want to be a guardian angel, a digital guardian angel for anyone that's in this space, that I'm not going to scam you. I'm just not.
He's a compassionate, peaceful,
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. There's no trick. There's no gimmick. There's no something. You're not going to have something pull underneath you afterwards. It's just going to be results, and that's it. And if you want it, great. If you don't, or you're still blocked, I understand. And I'm not going to try to force anyone, because I just empathize. I just know I'm going through it. I've gone through it. I'm in the process of it. So I completely understand. So, Theresa, as we're coming towards the end of our podcast, do you have anything else that we haven't shared today that is on your heart that you feel like sharing?
Well, one is just gratitude towards you. Just, I just I love your, I know it's a hokey word, but I love your aura. You just have this great energy about you, and just an authenticity to you, which was our intention at the start, intention at the start. So I just love it, because I feel like there's a shared authenticity. And that's what I wish for, I guess, anybody watching and listening, is to come to a place of self-love and acceptance where they feel safe to be their authentic self with themselves and with others. Because when you can feel safe to be authentic, the world's your oyster, because you don't have limitations at that point, because you're worthy. And so from a place of worthiness, you can do anything, whether it's losing weight, whether it's falling in love, whether it's building connection, whether it's building a career, whether it's getting on social media, right? But that's, I think that's a true root right there, is building that self worth through your own truths, and then being authentic with that, even in the face of conflict. And so I wish that for everyone out there. And so that's really everything.
There's your soundbite for social media. There it is, right there. In that 2 minutes or a minute and a half, there it is. You put the
I gotta
title
steal
of
that. Throw it on there.
it. You find a title of it, and there now you've created your social media content today.
Yay!
Just in that little section. So amazing. I love that. I ask all my guests a couple questions, but I want to be mindful of our time. Finally, if we could, let's say, go to the busiest street in Phoenix, put up a billboard, and that billboard could say a quote or like 2 to 3 sentences, what would you put on that billboard?
Is it a quote from me, or just a quote that
Anything. What message would you love a bunch of people to read every day?
Oh, that's so hard. I think for my people, no one can love you until you love you. Nobody can create your happiness but you. So make you a priority. The people in my world, the people in my world focus outward and look for external validation, or look for love from everyone else, and always feel alone and unloved, because they don't feel it first from themselves. And so love yourself first. Open yourself up to love from others. Don't look for happiness outside, look for it within. I think that's the big one.
So great. It was so wonderful connecting with you, Theresa, today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I also want to acknowledge you for the transformation you're facilitating for people. As myself, I'm working towards or working with people or a person with disorder. It's such important work, and I'm really close to it. And I see it, and I see the importance of having that end result that you facilitate. It's an incredible, fulfilling work that you do, and I'm so happy that we connected, so that hopefully I can give you some digital guidance down the road to help you blossom online. Not that you're not shining bright already, but maybe open up the possibility of shining brighter.
That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. And I just love meeting someone else that just has just that desire to help other people. It's so nice to meet others in that same mindset and that same heart space. It's just, it just proves what a great world we live in. There's really good people out there.
All right. And so this was another episode of Inside Mentors Minds. Take care, everyone.